Kia ora, good evening from outside Christchurch prison, where David Bain waits. Not a free man, but certainly much closer than he was 24 hours ago. Mike will have the rest of the day's news later, but for now we're focusing on the Privy Council's remarkable decision, quashing David Bain's murder convictions. We'll look at when Bain could be released on bail, possibly as soon as Tuesday. Will he face a retrial, and should he? The reasons why the Privy Council quashed his convictions. And if David didn't kill his family, who did? And what do the people of Dunedin think of the Bain decision, 13 years after the shootings shocked the city and the country? When David Bain heard the news last night, he uttered 3 words. "Oh, that's good." He was told the news over the phone by his longtime supporter, Joe Karam. 3 News had a camera there. The reporter is Juanita Hampton.
Quiet confidence the ruling would go in Bain's favour erupted into jubilation in Joe Karam's lounge.
Good evening. In breaking news, we've just heard that David Bain will get a week.
Long-time supporter Karam phoned Bain at Christchurch prison to break the news of the quashed conviction.
David, you're officially a remand inmate as of this moment. We've won a retrial. You know that?
Bain's no longer a convicted murderer, but not quite a free man. He's now in custody on remand, which means a better cell and better conditions. He declined to talk to 3 News, saying he needs time to come to terms with the decision.
He didn't know, and he's in shock really. He just said, "Oh, that's good."
An understatement considering Bain's been in jail since June 1995. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a 16-year non-parole period for murdering his father Robin, his mother Margaret, 2 sisters Arawa and Laniette, and 14-year-old Stephen. Since then, loyal supporters have protested Bain's innocence as strongly as he has. 3 attempts to have the Court of Appeal overturn the convictions failed. Supporters weren't confident about the last-ditch appeal to the Privy Council.
Didn't want to get hopes up, and sort of had to hear it from about 4 different sources before you can believe it.
I didn't want to raise my hopes too high.
Bain's legal team, who put together the Privy Council arguments, are now preparing another case, one for bail.
I've spoken to the Solicitor General. I've urged him not to oppose it, as I think it would be outrageous if they did that. I'd like the Crown to consent and be responsible, and then leave it to the judge to decide. But we are very hopeful that we will get bail.
Police are also considering their response.
We'd expect to be working with the Crown Law and probably the Dunedin Crown Solicitor to determine the process from here on.
Bain could be out as early as Tuesday if the bail hearing in the Christchurch High Court goes his way.
Juanita Hampton joins us now live. Juanita, what sort of day has Bain had?
Well, obviously, Hilary, a day of celebration, but also a day of phone calls. There have been no visiting hours here at Christchurch Prison, so none of David's countless supporters have actually been able to come and congratulate him in person. There are visiting hours tomorrow, but it's understood his key supporters will come and see him on Monday.
Juanita, thank you. The Privy Council ruled that David Bain suffered a substantial miscarriage of justice. But why? Tony Field has been reading the decision to find out.
The judgment runs for 46 pages, but its ruling is quite clear. A substantial miscarriage of justice has actually occurred. The Privy Council believes the Court of Appeal made a mistake by not allowing 9 pieces of new evidence to be put before a new jury.
The New Zealand Court of Appeal concluded that a reasonable jury wouldn't have come to any different conclusion on the new evidence, and therefore there was no substantial miscarriage of justice.
But the Privy Council disagreed, saying the issue of guilt is one for a properly informed and directed jury, not for an appellate court.
They said that a reasonable jury could have come up with a verdict of not guilty, and therefore, in their opinion, the new jury needs to be able to consider all that evidence.
Now, the Privy Council is not saying a new jury would have found David Bain innocent, but it says contentious evidence should be assessed by a jury, not an appeal court. Among the 9 issues are questions about Robin Bain's mental state, Robin Bain's possible motive for killing his family, questions over bloody footprints, were they David's or Robin's, fresh doubt over when the family computer was switched on, new evidence about when David returned home from his paper round, And could David's bloodied fingerprints on the rifle have come from shooting rabbits or possums months earlier? David Bain's chief supporter, Joe Karam, doubts there will be a new trial because some witnesses are dead and the Crown would have to put all the evidence before a jury. But Associate Professor Scott Optikin believes it's in the interests of justice that the case go before a new jury.
I think there's a strong public interest in finality in this case, and a concluded verdict of guilty or not guilty once and for all.
It's now up to the Crown to decide if there will be a new trial. The Privy Council is at pains to point out that it's not offering an opinion on David Bain's guilt or innocence. In the final line of this document, it says that nothing in the judgment should influence a verdict in any way. Tony Field, 3 News.
So the quashing of David Bain's convictions doesn't confirm his innocence, but inevitably it does raise the question, who else could have been responsible? There's only one alternative, David's father, Robin, who was found dead along with the others. Kim Chisnell looks at the evidence the jury never got to hear.
In 1995, Justice Williamson's opening line of his summing up to the jury was, who did it? David Bain, Robin Bain. We all know who the jury chose, but if the jury had heard all the evidence, would they have decided differently? The Privy Council found they may have. If the jury found Robin to be already in a state of deep depression and now a school principal and ex-missionary facing the public revelation of very serious sex offences against his teenage daughter, they might reasonably conclude that this could have driven him to commit these acts of horrific and uncharacteristic violence. But at the trial, 58-year-old Robin Bain was painted as a mature and balanced, devout school principal. It wasn't till after the trial evidence emerged to the contrary. Psychologist Cyril Wilden visited Robin at his school and found him to be clinically depressed. Another psychologist says Robin was deeply disturbed. David Bain supporter Joe Karam says Robin's mental state offers an explanation for the killings.
He behaved completely out of character, as people do. Mothers drive babies over cliffs into the sea, and Mr. Bain got this gun while David was on his paper round and in a state of obviously some severe psychosis, killed his family and then killed himself.
At the trial, David Bain's lawyers argued that Robin was about to be exposed for having an incestuous relationship with his daughter Laniette. But the jury never heard Dean Cottle's evidence that Laniette told him about the relationship.
They might have rejected Cottle's evidence totally, but they at least should have had it. And I think the reason it was really excluded was that the judge by that stage believed that David was guilty.
After the trial, it emerged that Laniette had told others about her relationship, including a local dairy owner. Reporter Michael Turner, who covered the original trial, says the new evidence leaves no doubt in his mind.
Robin Bain must have done it. I mean, he was depressed, pushed out of the family home, in an incestuous relationship with his daughter. These are the sort of men who do this sort of thing.
It's uncertain whether there'll be a retrial to determine if David Bain is responsible for killing his family. But in the court of public opinion, Robin Bain seems to be the most likely suspect. Kim Chisnell, 3 News.